Okay, why the story of Shadowlands failed so terribly.
Yeah, it sucked. But why? I think it goes without saying that Shadowlands, this recent WoW expansion, was not very well received from a story perspective by the greater World of Warcraft community. And that's
I don't think anybody liked it. That's what's so crazy about Shadowlands is that, like, usually with a lot of these expansions, you would assume that, like, some people would have a positive reception. With Shadowlands, bro, I feel like everybody was pissed.
Kind of strange, isn't it, considering how much creativity there was in this expansion when you think about it. We got to go to these various afterlives about vampires that drink sin like it's wine, this weird blue people and owl people purgatory, giant
keep in mind, the little stewards, the Kyrian stewards, they are slaves. Okay? They are owl slaves. One of the biggest failures of Shadowlands was to not explore the narratives that they were seeming to explore with the Uther fucking cinematic at the beginning, the background story.
Dead arenas with magic and necromancers, nature and such, and we just learned more about how the afterlives were created, and we learned more about creation itself and how it works in the World of Warcraft. And yet, despite all of this creativity, there was an absolutely huge amount of community backlash against this expansion. People did not connect even in the slightest with this story, and what—
No, people liked the Jailer a lot. Or sorry, they liked Denathrius a lot. I feel like Denathrius was a universally liked character. Not everybody liked it, but most people liked him.
What Blizzard was trying to tell. But again, why did this happen? Well, in my opinion, I've narrowed it down to two main reasons. Two things that I think made the Shadowlands storyline one of the absolute worst stories in World of Warcraft. So to begin,
so far,
let us discuss point number one, and that is Sylvanas Windrunner.
That is the main culprit, isn't it? Yep, that's the main culprit, is fucking Sylvanas.
Sylvanas has been a fan-favorite character in World of Warcraft for years, ever since her introduction back in Warcraft 3. And
But let's be honest here. Most of the people that are a fan of Sylvanas are either crazy girls on Twitter or guys that think she's hot. Like, yeah, she had a cool character and everything, but it was mainly because she was really hot.
She has been at the center of World of Warcraft ever since she became the war chief of the Horde. Now, you would think that a character like Sylvanas, a character so beloved by the community for so many years, would be a recipe for success for Blizzard. They'd put her at the forefront for a time, she would lead the story, it would be fantastic. And yet that's not at all what happened. From my personal perspective, what Blizzard did with Sylvanas is they really tried to push her as this strong female character at the head of the World of Warcraft story. But the problem was, Blizzard, despite giving her all these power-ups and giving her these badass lines and stuff, really trying to push that strong female archetype, the biggest issue with this was the fact that, well, Sylvanas was already a strong—
Well, she was a crazy bitch, that's the problem. And like, you can have like this strong female character, that's always very annoying, is that there are plenty of strong female characters, like Ripley in Alien is a strong female character. Because you don't think about her being a female for the entirety of the story of it, right? Like Samus, Tyrande, I think is actually a much stronger, much better character now than Sylvanas is. I think that also, like, one of the big problems with the way that people try to write strong female characters is that they never give the strong female characters a weakness. Like, it's not as much of a defined weakness as there are with the strong male characters. And because of that, and it's a very it's like a distorted view of what a person is, and it makes it hard to identify with it. She's on the wrong side of the Mendoza crazy hot scale. Well, Sylvanas was pretty much at 10 and 10, but that's okay. Tyrande character's bad, you only know if you read the books, well then nobody cares. Like, nobody cares what's in the books, it doesn't matter. The books don't matter, the books are irrelevant.
Female character. She didn't need to be any stronger. In Warcraft 3, she was a defender of her people, a defender of Quel'Thalas. She fought against Arthas. She was ultimately killed, raised as a banshee. She broke free of the Lich King's control, and then she rallied together all the survivors of Lordaeron, undead humans and undead blood elves who had broken free from the Lich King's control, and was leading a rebellion against the Scourge in Lordaeron in order to reclaim the homeland of her people as well as the people of Lordaeron. And yet in the shadows, despite her heroism, Sylvanas bore this sort of grudge against life itself, the life that had rejected her and her people. And so in the shadows of the Apothecarium, Sylvanas and her vile Forsaken alchemists were brewing a new plague of undeath that would kill both Scourge and living alike to make everybody monsters just like they were. And that's it. That's who Sylvanas was in Classic WoW and Warcraft.
Sylvanas was unironically a gray character, a morally gray character. Sylvanas, in the history of WoW, I think is the best morally gray character. I think that she's better than Illidan in that regard, because I don't think Illidan is morally gray at all. I think Illidan is just always right. Everything he did was right, and Malfurion and Tyrande were stupid. So that's where I'm at. And so Sylvanas, though, was much more morally gray.
Warcraft 3, and you know what? It was absolutely fantastic, and it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah. She was a character that seemed heroic on the surface, and yet deep down, she was evil. She was a villain, and she cared for nobody but herself and her own people. But over the years, Blizzard sort of isolated Sylvanas. She didn't care about the Forsaken anymore. All she cared about were her own goals. And suddenly she was in league with this 15-foot-tall vampire bodybuilder, and they were trying to destroy all life itself and rewrite the cosmos or something and blah, blah, blah.
Some fucking bullshit. Like, I mean, I don't know what this was either. Like, it was like some fucking, like, okay, you're gonna, like, make everybody is now, like, dead or something like that. Like, what the fuck?
And it just didn't work. Sylvanas had always been a character that had operated from the shadows, ambushing people when they least expected it, working on plagues of undeath down in the dark caverns of the Undercity. This was a character that never should have been brought to the forefront. She never should have been War Chief. She never...
No, she shouldn't have been. It was so stupid whenever they made her the War Chief. It's like, what the fuck? Like, who would ever... Like, if we had a vote on this, nobody would have voted for this. Literally nobody was going to vote on this. Like, this is the worst decision you could possibly make. It's like, Vol'jin? Well, Vol'jin's a fucking idiot. Like, he shouldn't have listened to... Oh, some spirit's going to tell me what to do. Oh, it's a spirit? Yeah, well, it's dead. So maybe don't listen to it. It's fucking dead. Yeah, see how that worked out for him, huh? That's his decision-making. He's not here anymore. Yeah, let's hear what he's got to say. No fucking shot. No, Bane should have been War Chief. There shouldn't have been a War Chief. There should have just been a war council. The whole idea of a war chief is stupid anyway. It was a dumb fucking idea. Like, it should have been gone after Thrall. There wasn't a war chief. There was Thrall. That was the war chief. Maybe Karen Bloodhoof could have been the war chief. Other than that, nobody else could have been. Or I do think that if Garrosh had taken over... See, like, in my alternate universe of WoW... Garrosh takes over as the true war chief of the Horde. Everybody on the Horde is fucking part of his, you know, like his global domination, except for the undead. He kicks them out. The Alliance and the Horde team up, kill all of the undead, just mercilessly murder every single one of them. We take Lordaeron back. The undead are no longer a playable race. They're out of the game. And now you have battles, you know, with like the Horde and the Alliance, and like our fucking guy is Varian, and then their guy is Garrosh, and it's two big masculine fucking beefy dudes just like fighting all the time. That was what I was hoping was going to happen with Battle for Azeroth. That's what it was going to be. And like as soon as Garrosh took over, it's like, okay, great. Yeah, the Iron Horde? Exactly, man. Yeah, that's how it should have been. I played that for 18 years straight. Hell yeah.
Should have been awesome. At the front of a storyline. Making her the war chief and making her in league with this big 15-foot-tall vampire bodybuilder, and they're trying to rewrite creation and the cosmos and stuff, it just doesn't work. It's Blizzard.
I think it doesn't work because they didn't let it work. If they had gone and actually explained what the jailer was trying to do, I think it would have been fine. But like, you can't have a character that's like fucking cloaked in secrecy and then you never find out why they're bad. It's like, okay, think about it like this. Okay, the jailer's in the mall. So we hear from Denathrius, it's kind of, you know, he's a double agent, but like you hear from the fucking Night Fae, the Arbiter, not really the Arbiter isn't doing anything, but yeah, like pretty much Arbiter, like they replaced him with this new Arbiter. You hear from, you know, the Kyrian girl, from Crexus and whoever's in charge of the, what do you call it, of Maldraxxus, about how bad the jailer is. Oh, from the Primus. Oh, the jailer's so bad. Well, what about his side of things? Well, I mean, really, everybody else was against him. But, I mean, they did. The thing is, though, you think about it like this, is that the first ones made the jailer the Arbiter. So the first ones understand creation way better than any of the other fucking robots do. So if they made the jailer the Arbiter and he said this has to happen, who are they to say no? He's the fucking Arbiter. You see what I mean? Everyone was against him and no one knows why. Good story. Exactly, yeah. He could have been a good character.
Blizzard trying to take a strong female character and make her a stronger female character, which didn't work, and them not understanding who she was as a character and how her story should have played out, so instead they just made this some old bullshit up with the Shadowlands, and it fell flat on its face. The reality is, unfortunately, when it came to Shadowlands, everything revolved around Sylvanas.
And the thing is also is that she wasn't as hot whenever it revolved around her. Like, if her character was hotter, if they made her boobs bigger, everybody would have been fine with this. But you can't simultaneously make the character less hot and also make more of the story about her. This is a line you don't cross. It was a mistake. I don't like the robot stuff. I don't get the robot stuff. So, like, all of the fucking, the main leaders in Shadowlands were actually just robots. And then... oh, it's just so weird, man. It's just so fucking weird. Nobody would have been fine with her character during Shadowlands was garbage? No, but people would have made up... no, bro, like, trust me. It's like any time that there's some crazy girl that like, you know, fucking, you know, she decapitates her boyfriend after biting his dick off whenever she said she'd give him a blowjob, and they post her picture, and she's hot. There's always guys in the comments of that Twitter thing, oh, I'd let her bite my dick off. Yeah, true, man. Yeah, I could fix her. She wouldn't have done that to me. Yeah, 100%.
This point, if you were somebody that just hated Sylvanas as a character, or you were someone like me that loved Sylvanas as a character beforehand, but you felt that Blizzard downgraded her in quality in terms of her writing and character development, then this expansion was just gonna suck, because it just all revolved around her. And the unfortunate truth is that going into Shadowlands, most people could not stand Sylvanas Windrunner and how Blizzard were developing her as a character. And because she was at the center of the Shadowlands expansion, nobody liked the storyline because they didn't care about the main character. And now
it's not that they didn't care about the main character. That would have been fine. But it's that they actively disliked her. Yeah, if they didn't care about her, it would have been like, okay, yeah, that's whatever.
About the second reason why Shadowlands failed, and this is something that I've hinted at in previous videos and on Twitch streams, but that's just simply the fact that Shadowlands was very strange. It wasn't really an...
That's one way to put it. Nothing made sense.
Expansion built upon any pre-established World of Warcraft lore, if you think about it. It was kind of a pure shot in the dark sort of expansion. We were going to the Afterlives, which was
Isn't this fucking pathetic, bro? Like, that's the Lich King. Bro, that's supposed to be the Lich... that's the Bitch King. That's pathetic, bro. Like, he should... bro, are you kidding me? That's so fucking stupid. It was. That's just embarrassing. Arthas was the best Lich King? Yeah, y'all know, like, if that was Arthas up on that throne, Shadowlands never would have fucking happened. That's the same thing I said with Malfurion. You know, they were getting rid of Malfurion in the story and like one of the new cinematics or some shit, right? And it's like, the truth is that, like, if Illidan was dating Tyrande, that tree would never have burned down. And you know that. Like, that tree would still be there. 100%.
Subject that had never been explored before in previous Warcraft titles, and we were interacting with people that just didn't really, we didn't know anything about them. We were going to these lands where vampires were drinking sin like wine and meeting people like Sire Denathrius, and this was fine, I guess, but then...
I think the thing is, you can add... The problem was, like, whenever you have an afterlife, is you get to a situation where... This is what they kind of ran into with 9.2, is you get to a turtles all the way down situation, where it's like, okay, what about the afterlife? Okay, what about the people that made the afterlife? Okay, what about the people that made the afterlife's afterlife? What about how they made the afterlife and how to unmake? Like, you see what I'm saying, right? So it just becomes more and more fucking complex. And that's why you never start trying to peel back those layers, because whenever you peel one back, it just creates another one. It's an infinite hierarchy, yeah.
Suddenly you would go from hanging out with a bunch of vampires to suddenly being in purgatory with a bunch of blue people and talking owls. Then suddenly you're in some...
Elysian Fields, I think, was not purgatory in Greek mythology. I'm pretty sure that was their version of heaven, although the purgatory is kind of what happened to some of the characters. But yes, it was very different.
Nature area with this Elune ripoff lady, and then the next thing you're fighting in like arenas with a bunch of undead and necromancers. It was just kind of all over.
And this was a fucking disappointment. Draka, who gives a fuck about you? Who cares? Who gives a fuck about Draka? Like, the only thing that she did that was important in the story was die. Bro, imagine how good this cinematic would have been if it was about Alexandros Mograine. The fucking Ashbringer, the guy who had dedicated his entire life to destroying the undead, and he wakes up and he's among them. But we got Draka. What a pathetic fucking joke. Oh my god. It's so sad. She's a strong woman. But she wasn't even really. That's why she died.
Over the place. And then you had this big guy called the Jailer, and he was trying to rewrite reality and rewrite the cosmos to prepare us for what was to come. Or
I am still not convinced that the Jailer was the bad guy. I am not entirely convinced.
Something, so he was actually the good guy or whatever, in some weird way of looking at it. Despite a lot of creativity in Shadowlands, the story and the locations all felt very random, and although they were connected, sort of, it all felt very, well, disconnected. But overall, I think the worst sin that Blizzard committed, like genuinely the worst sin that got people...
This is the Arthas thing. I don't even really think the Arthas thing mattered. I feel like it was just completely fucking irrelevant. In my opinion, Jailer did nothing wrong. If you want to say he's gray, it's sure, fair enough. I don't even think it's a gray situation. It's like, it's obvious that, like, the Arbiter has a level of understanding that transcends the other Eternals, because that's why they're the Arbiter. So if the Arbiter has a level of understanding that transcends all of the other Eternals, then how the fuck are they going to go and say that it's the Jailer who's the bad guy? He's the one who makes the decision. They wanted to make Thanos for a while. Yeah, but the Jailer is Thanos with no voice lines. That's what the issue is. Yeah, I do think that I was actually expecting at the end of the Sepulchre to get like a cinematic of why the Jailer was doing all of this stuff, and then he dies or something like that. But we didn't even get that. Like, I was even thinking maybe there could be a chance that they could pull the exact same thing that they did with the Lich King. Is like at the very end, the Jailer literally kills everyone in one hit. That's it. Kills everybody in one hit. It's over. And then after that, he's like, yeah, listen, I was on your side all along. Here's what's really going on. And it's like some fucking, you know, like the next expansion is the Void Lords. That's kind of what I was expecting was going to happen. I thought that, and this even goes farther, like this was like my own headcanon of what I thought was going to happen. I thought that after BFA, N'Zoth actually won. And that's why everybody was in the Shadowlands, and you were trying to convince the people that you were dead, or that you weren't dead, but nobody in the Shadowlands would acknowledge that you were dead, or that you were not dead. So, like, you thought you were alive, but nobody else did. And then throughout the story, you would learn that actually you did die, N'Zoth did win, and that's why the jailer is trying to do all of these things to reverse that. That feels a lot better? Yeah, that didn't happen. And I thought that we would only find that out at the very end.
Just riled up was when Blizzard decided to touch World of Warcraft's most famous character, Arthas the Lich King.
Yeah.
And they tried to paint it like Zoval, this jailer guy, was behind the Lich King. He was actually his creator. He's more powerful than the Lich King.
Well, I think that the Lich King is not all fucking powerful, right? Clearly he's not, and clearly the Lich King was being influenced by Frostmourne and by the Helm of Domination. So I don't really think that it's... I actually didn't have a problem with the jailer being the one that was controlling the Lich King. I actually thought that part of the story was totally fine.
Lich King was just a pawn in his scheme. Everything was just a pawn in his great plan, and everything that had happened so far had been orchestrated by him. This sort of crap never works. The only
it does work. It worked with Thanos. It's worked with Palpatine. It worked with let's see. It worked with Sauron in the Second Age, where he's like crafting all of the rings, and it's like a long form plot. It worked with, let's see, what are some other examples of like a good guy that turns out it did not work, but I think it would have worked if it was done correctly with Daenerys in Game of Thrones. I think it would have worked extremely well. Ozymandias. Yeah, Ozymandias is an incredible fucking example. Like, that's what I was hoping that we would get from the jailer. Is like the Ozymandias at the very end of the Watchmen, right? And they find out that he did something absolutely horrible, but the means justify the ends, or the ends justify the means. That's what I was hoping to see. Griffith? No, that'd be like reverse. Bleach, yeah, I didn't watch Bleach. Dio from JoJo? No, Dio was a bad guy from the very beginning, and he was always a bad guy. He's a bad guy up until the very end. But yeah, what I'm saying is, like, there are many cases where a character can be an evil character until you learn that they were actually doing a good thing. Oh, you want to know a really good example of this? Snape from fucking Harry Potter. Snape is probably one of the best fucking examples, where you think like Snape is a fucking asshole, and you can go the majority of the show thinking he's an absolute fucking asshole, and then at the very end you realize not only was he not an asshole, but he was the most dedicated motherfucker out there. You know, somebody said Kanye? No. And so yeah, the whole time you actually just love Lily Potter. Exactly. And I thought, like, that was amazing. Like, to be honest, I thought the ending of Harry Potter was amazing, and that was one of the big reasons for it, is that you have a character like that you're completely misled with. And it's not that you're misled, it's that there's an important part of the story that's left out. And that's why, like, there were hints of this. What up?
Snape kills Dumbledore!
Well, now it's ruined, guys. Well, yeah, there you go. I hope you guys seen the movie, and hope that was fun. Hope you enjoyed it. That's great. Yeah, it was on page 3. Yeah, listen, all I'm saying is that there are a lot of instances where what they were doing with the jailer could have worked incredibly well.
Time this sort of storytelling works is when you can genuinely look back over like the years or over the course of the story and be like, oh, and you can see the clues. Like,
exactly at the end of the and you can do that with Snape or like any of those other characters as well, like even Daenerys, etc. You can go back and do that, like with Scooby-Doo. This is always the example I use. Is like with Scooby-Doo, after they pull off the fucking mask and it's like, it's the mailman, and then it goes back to the mailman delivering a bomb that you didn't notice into somebody's mailbox, and probably they wouldn't have had that in Cartoon Network, but something like that. And you can go back throughout the episode and see the different things that like the character was doing that would have made it seem like they were guilty that you just didn't notice. And I think that's a really cool thing. I hope that's what they do going forward, is they have better storytelling that way.
You can see people all the way back in classic WoW saying, yes, one day you shall all know the pains of his prisons or something. And it all just kind of builds up until you say, oh, here's the guy that everybody's been talking about over the years. But here's the thing. Nobody since Warcraft 3 ever mentioned some big-ass guy named the Jailer.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. Li Shin comes in for one patch. It's like, surprise, bitch, I'm back. Everybody fucking loved him. They were like, oh my god, this guy is fucking badass. He's super cool. They had to use like a nuclear bomb to kill him, and he's back at it again. And he he beat the shit out of Ra, and he made him his bitch, and he put him in a basement, and he fucked him in the ass with a pipe. Like, that's what Li Shin did. So, like, that's not true, number one. Another example is Denathrius. Denathrius came in and was in one patch. People fucking loved him. So that's another example. Like, you can have a character come in from literally out of nowhere, and people immediately like them if they're written and done the right way. Muzella is mentioned in Zul'Farrak. This was just a dungeon boss. Yeah. Muzella wasn't a big deal. Let me think. If there's any more of them, I don't know if there is or not, but yeah, you don't have to have a character that's just been there forever. But they didn't retcon Li Shin into the old lore. Same with Sire. I would argue that putting the Jailer into the lore is not a retcon. It is not as much of a retcon as you might imagine. And I can guarantee you, if the Jailer was written by George R.R. Martin, you wouldn't be complaining. Can we just agree on that? Or Tolkien, or somebody like that. Whoever you think is a great writer. Yeah, everybody would have thought he was awesome.
No references to this character. There was nothing. All the events of Warcraft 3 and in World of Warcraft were not a part of this dumbass's plan? Of course it wasn't. It's ridiculous that they even put that forward. I'm getting passionate about it just talking about it. And you can see what I'm talking about.
It would have been totally fine if at the end of the story, everybody, it turned out that he was doing the right thing. Everything, it would have been totally fucking fine.
Talking about.
Because it doesn't make sense, right? It's like you have a fucking 10 million year plan, and then somebody shows up and in 2 patches it's done? Good plan, idiot. Like, what are you thinking? Like, this guy, and this is something that annoyed me. Thrall is the most powerful shaman to ever exist. Jaina is one of the most powerful mages to ever exist. Bolvar was the Lich King. The Jailer goes like this. All 3 of them are dead. They're basically in chains. They're functionally dead. He just does this. How is it that anybody would even have the slightest, most remote chance at even thinking that you can beat this guy? There's no way.
Hate this sort of storytelling because it came out of nowhere and it spit upon the previous stories that had been told and the characters that had been told, saying, oh, hey, you know those like characters that you know and love from back in the day? Well, they were just puppets on the string of this.
This is so fucking stupid, man. They just grab him. They just grab Andor. They come down from the sky and they just fucking whoop. There it is.
Really cool new character that we developed. His name's Zoval, and he's badass. Guess what? He's not. No one likes him. Get rid of him. I'm glad that we did.
And they should have never revealed his name either. I think that revealing his name was stupid. They should have saved that for the very end.
Shadowlands failed mostly because of those two reasons. Nobody liked Sylvanas, and Sylvanas was the center of the expansion, and so nobody cared about her story. Nobody cared about her choices. People just wanted to kill her, collect her loot, and make her go away. And then the other thing was just how random and disconnected everything felt in Shadowlands, from the zones and the locations to the story to even the main villain. And despite Blizzard trying to create a sort of connectivity with like the rest of the world and its storyline, trying to say things like the jailer was behind it all, it just didn't work. It fell flat on its face. So that's why I think the story of Shadowlands failed, but I will say that I think that the story of Dragonflight is looking a lot more interesting. In fact, tremendously more interesting for several reasons. But I'm going to talk about that in another video at a later time. For most of us, though, we've all quit Shadowlands and we're all playing Wrath of the Lich King. But for those people that are not playing Wrath of the Lich King because maybe you don't understand why Wrath of the Lich King is so significant, or those of you that have never played Wrath of the Lich King before and you don't know the history of the expansion and why so many people are hyped for it, I highly recommend you watch this video on your screen right now called Why is Wrath of the Lich King Such a Big Deal? It will answer all those questions for you guys and a whole lot more. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, I think I did see that one. Let me go ahead and pause.